Hi, it's Jeff Chalmers here from discoverdouble-bass.com. That's our website that's full of wonderful lessons by incredible tutors to help you improve your bass playing, play your best music. And I'm joined today by a new tutor to the website, somebody who I've been geeking out on their playing for months, really taking a deep dive and loving the energy and the joy that they put into their music, as well as their, what I think is virtuosic jazz bass playing. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome today to Discover Double Bass, Russell Hall. Russell, welcome. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, man. This is a special, special treat.
Well, it's just been so cool to hang out. And just the other person that's with us as well is the bass, who's provided by Randy Hunt. This is his instrument. You were just playing this first. What?
Yeah, this instrument, oh man.
Oof. What do you think about it? Have you enjoyed playing it?
It's one of the most beautiful instruments I've played.
Give us some of the low end, because...
Oh, yeah.
Well, Russell, just before we get geeking out on all this stuff, tell us a little bit about what you're doing, the kind of projects that you're working on at the moment. I know that you've got so much stuff happening, just to set it up for everyone at home so they can learn a little bit about you.
Oh, well, I have quite a bit of stuff I'm working on. Of course, you know, a lot of people have been knowing my work with Emmet Cohen and Kyle Poole, who I've been playing with for many years, I'd say about 8 years. And we have, I guess, 4 or 5 albums out together now. Myself and Emmet, we did a project together with Benny Golson and Tootie Heath. We also did something with George Coleman and the great drummer Brian Carter.
Wow. And
then as a trio with Kyle, we have 2 albums out. The first being Dirty in Detroit, which is a live album we recorded at the Dirty Dog in Detroit. And that album's really funny because it was kind of a night that I said to Kyle and Emmet, I was like, come on guys, like let's make a record. And then we actually like played the whole gig like it was a live record. So it turned out really great, and the audience was just unbelievable, the reception. So, you know, that turned into a whole live album. And then from years and years of playing, we've compiled a repertoire of hundreds of songs, and through that we produced an album entitled Future Stride, and it features also Melissa Aldana on tenor saxophone and Marquise Hill on trumpet. Yeah,
it's pretty special stuff, and I know that the Life of Emmet Place sessions that you've been doing.
Oh yeah.
So is that literally his house? Are you just going around to his place and doing this weekly session?
So I'll give you the whole story.
Yeah, give us a minute, because people always ask about it.
Yeah. So I helped, let me just preface this to say, I met Emmet almost 10 years ago. I met him in December of 2011. I was 17, still had braces. He was a senior at the University of Miami. I was a senior at Dillard High School. And we met and we kind of bonded on a gig because we didn't get paid by the band leader for like 6 weeks. And, you know, through that, he was just like, well, dang, you ain't got paid. And, you know, I need a bass player for this gig. Can you do this? I was like, yeah, sure. And then we started playing together. We moved to New York at the same time. He started going to Manhattan School of Music for his master's. I started going to Juilliard for my bachelor's. And we developed this trio with a myriad of drummers: Evan Sherman, Kyle Poole, Ollie Jackson, so many other incredible drummers and artists, and we all kind of moved to New York at the same time. So his first apartment was like on 110th Street, right next to Columbia in New York. And then his second apartment he acquired, I guess, in 2013. And the funny story is, all of the furniture that you see in the live streams, I was the one that moved all that furniture into his apartment. Me and him, 2 strong, able-bodied men, just moving all his furniture up 5 flights of stairs in the blistering New York summer. Oh man, what idiots. We should have gotten somebody to do it. But we moved all his furniture, not the piano. Piano was lifted in with a crane.
Yeah.
So through his balcony. And yeah, he's been living there, I guess, since 2013. And we've been, over there to play and, but never imagined that we would ever start a 21st century rent party in his apartment. So flash forward to pandemic, March of 2020. We were supposed to do these gigs in Kansas, but they're still going to pay us for the gig as long as, we film it on my iPhone and we'll just do a live stream. And then we did this live stream and then it became really successful. So we're like, hey, we're not doing anything else. We're all a stone's throw away from each other. We're basically quarantined together. The only people we've seen for upwards of, 6 to 8 weeks, give or take. And then from there, we were filming on this small iPhone, and then eventually Kyle got really tech savvy, and then we started getting more people involved. We got a sound mixing board, started working with OBS, and then eventually it turned into multi-camera TV show, for lack of a better word. And, we've been getting donations from our fans that we've accrued through years of touring through the Midwest, everything from the Midwest to the jazz cruise, and everything else in between, Europe, all over the world, and now it's evolved into this TV show that features guests. It's very impromptu. You go over the house, it's very much a normal New York apartment vibe of like...
So the arrangements that you're playing, are you kind of like working through them in advance? Is it stuff that you have stock that you've maybe done before?
We have a lot of stock stuff that we've done. A lot of stock.
I don't never see any real music hanging around the place.
Oh no, we almost never really use music unless like we have a guest, such as people like Nicholas Payton or Joe Lovano, who come in and they have their original music, and we will read the music. There may be a music stand there, or I'll read off the piano. But for the most part, especially when we're playing trio, we learn everything by ear. Almost never read music when I'm playing just trio. But if we have a guest,
And is that the same for all your gigs? If you reach the point that you've got a really big repertoire of music and you can draw upon that, or if you've just got great ears that you can hear it, or?
It depends on the gig, you know. Like, for example, I played with virtually every musician in New York at this point. And some musicians have really difficult music, or better, music I'm not as familiar with, or I don't play with them as often, so I will read their music. But bands that I play in all the time, such as Emmet's band, Mowenzo and the Shakes, which is another band that I've been a staple of for many years, people like Jon Batiste, I almost never read music playing with them. But if it's, like somebody calls me for a one-off and the music is like going through multiple meters and all of that, then I'm almost certainly reading music. But yeah. It's
such a special thing. And whenever I think about the pandemic and the good projects that have come out of it, Live from Emmett's Place is definitely one of those. And then that's kind of sent me down this rabbit hole, and I really, really dig this video of you playing with the Ladybugs, and the tune is
Save the Bones.
Save the Bones.
For Henry Jones.
Yeah, that is so cool. I will provide a link below for that video.
You got to.
It's one of my favorite.
Well, it's funny because we filmed that, I guess, now 3 years ago, and I learned that song that day. Like, I didn't know of the song, and I didn't know, the tune entirely. So they taught me that song there, and Martina has been a frequent collaborator. I've known her upwards of 10 years now.
Martina De Silva.
Yeah, Martina De Silva and Vanessa Perea.
They are incredible.
Incredible singers, and Martina and I are pretty frequent collaborators, and we work all the time.
Arrangement of East of the Sun. Did you play that beautiful bass line with Martina? It's just popping into
my mind. Wow!
Do you remember, do you remember that?
Yeah.
I've been geeking out. When you go into that YouTube rabbit hole, my YouTube rabbit hole has Russell Hall bass solo.
I can't even remember what I played, but I remember the video, and we really.
It's this really tender kind of.
Yeah.
feel.
We got to and Martina and I have really collaborated on a lot of duo bass stuff, sometimes where I'm singing, sometimes where I'm just playing. We also have another video out of us playing a song called Por Causa.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's
just one of my favorite,
Is that with tap dancing as well?
No, that one didn't have, that was Beam Bomb.
Ah.
That had tap dancing. That featured the incredible Michaela Marino Lerman and Vanessa and the incredible pianist Sean Mason. But Por Causa, I fell in love with Rosa Passos and Ron Carter's album, Entre Amigos.
Okay.
And felt like one of my desert island discs. Like, whenever I'm having a bad day.
So Ron Carter and...
Ron Carter and Rosa Passos. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need to check that out. And okay, so Ron Carter, just while he's entered the room, we can't ignore the maestro. Tell us about your relationship with Ron. When did you first meet him? Because I know that he's somebody who's been a big influence in your life. When you get excited and you talk about bass, you go straight to Ron Carter.
Oh yeah. Well, there are two people that I get really excited.
Yeah.
But I'll start with Ron Carter. Mainly because that was the first jazz concert I ever saw.
Really?
The first time I ever saw jazz perform.
Where was that and who was in it?
It was his quartet with Stephen Scott on piano. I believe Peyton Crosley was on drums. And this percussionist, amazing percussionist named Manolo. He has all kind of sounds and whistles and chimes and bells and stuff. And it was the first time I've ever seen jazz played by jazz musicians, in a live concert. I was probably about 14, just started playing the double bass. Yeah. I remember the exact day because it was Valentine's Day of 2009. And I never forget it because he was wearing this tuxedo, and he's so, you see him and he's so statuesque and he carries himself, he's just like, the maestro. He's the maestro. So you see him, and it was the first time I'm ever seeing this. And then, to be honest, the first jazz I'd ever heard was Ron Carter, because about LimeWire, right? So when I was first starting to learn how to play jazz and learn about the double bass, I just typed in jazz bass in LimeWire, and the first track that popped up was Footprints.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, what is that? I gotta learn that. That's the greatest thing I've ever heard. And then the second thing I learned was Haitian Fight Song. Whoa. So between Charles Mingus and Ron Carter, those were my first influences. But back to Mr. Carter. So I saw him perform, and then it's so funny. I still have this picture. He's so austere and so stoic and it's so he's just the Mr. Miyagi of the bass, just all-knowing, all-seeing. So me, this loud Jamaican kid with braces at 14 years old, is like, hey, Ron Carter, can you take a picture of me? And then I throw my arm around his shoulder, and he's just in this picture, still very austere and very poised. And I'm just there grinning, skinning out my teeth, just, hey, right with Ron Carter, and having no idea about the relationship I would have with this man, further into my, life and then adulthood. So then fast forward to my time at Juilliard, we get to this masterclass with Ron Carter, and most of his students are either grad students or juniors and seniors or artist diploma students. So I'm in there, and he must have seen something in me. I always equated to the Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi, because he sees something in me and he just starts tearing into my behind on the bass. Just, man, you don't know what you're doing, man. And just starts going off on me. And I was so embarrassed at the time. And then now I look back at it and I laugh, because I'm like, wow, I really didn't have a tuning peg for my D string at the time, or I was fixing my end pin with, rubber bands or something. And then eventually I became a student once I was a senior, and I would go to his house, and I always go back to this analogy, but it was really like Mr. Miyagi, because he was just play an F major scale for me. And I'd just be in there for the entirety of the hour-long lesson. too hard, too hard, too hard. Fill the apartment, fill the room, not the apartment. I'll be like, wow, okay. Elbow. Hello, Mr. Hall. I'm almost 90 years old, and I got my elbow up. Why are you talking? You know, so he was always demanding absolute excellence, no matter what you were doing. If it was playing a scale or walking a bass line or just showing up to the lesson, it was always about excellence. Everything about his method was excellence. But I just, love him so much, and he is one of the most generous people I've ever met in my life. One of the most generous. I mean, I still have a pair of socks he gave me for Christmas, he's giving me strings, he's giving me so much information, he's giving me lessons and free of cost, and wow. He's definitely the bass player I've studied the most in terms of like his posture and the way he carries himself. And
was there anything specific that you kind of think back about that time that you learnt from him, or was it more of a kind of general approach to how you relate to the instrument or something? When you think about your time with Von Carter, is there anything that kind of jumps out that you think, oh, that really helped me on my journey, that focus?
Well, I think the thing that helped, what's funny about it too is that I've never really stopped studying with Ron Carter.
Yeah.
So, I was taking lessons with him all through quarantine. I would call him on Zoom, he would send me a Zoom link, and he'd be there in the little screen, just, hey, Russell, how you doing? How you doing, Mr. Hall? All right. Get the bass out, and we'd be there trying to figure it out. And so I will go to say I've never really stopped studying with him. I feel like I am still his student, and I am still learning so much from him, even now, because it's one thing, Ben Wolfe, the great bassist who I've studied with for years and years, and who has become basically like my adopted uncle, over the years. He always says that his playing, his teaching really rivals his playing. So, I didn't know what that meant until I actually studied with him, because I have books and books of notes from every lesson, recordings of every single lesson, like some of the funniest moments you could ever imagine, him cussing me out and yelling at me about the way I'm holding the bass or playing too hard or any of the, so I also feel very connected to him because I'm into astrology and the stars, and our birthdays are like a couple days apart, and there's like a long lineage of Taurus bass players, people like Charles Mingus, Paul Chambers, Ron Carter, Percy Heath, this list that goes on and on. So I feel very much like a young Padawan with, Master Yoda, like I'm his forever student, and I'm still learning stuff that I didn't know, because you go through his discography and you see, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to take you a long time.
Yeah, you won't stop because he's still recording.
Do you have a favourite recording that you'd like to, or one that maybe you'd like to share of Von Carter's, and then I'll maybe share one?
Oh man,
I was thinking
so
about
hard.
Golden Striker. For me,
I
just remember buying Golden Striker on CD and just really taking it in, really. And I love all the duo records with Jim Hall that he did.
So beautiful.
But yeah, there's so much. Is there any that come to mind that you sort of?
Well, like so many musicians, his work with Miles Davis is just like, it's beyond words at this point, particularly the album Miles in the Sky. You really hear how out of space he can go. He can like create universes. My nickname for Mr. Carter is the Sorcerer, because that's who the whole song is written about, because he's this austere man with this long beard, this gray beard, and he's 6'4", and he has these long arms. He's almost like Professor Dumbledore in a weird way, and every time I hear him play, it's complete alchemy, it's complete magic. That's not stuff that everybody is capable of doing. And when you see him play, every time is different. Sometimes I've seen Mr. Carter like play under the bass and start strumming under here and playing harmonics and messing with the tuners, and then he'll like tap the bass, and then he'll just go into his like, and then and it would just be like, oh my God, Ron Carter, you know. So I'm at a loss for words because, you know, I love all of his work, but the stuff with Miles Davis is...
I think I mean, we can't ignore that.
You can't ignore that. That is some of the greatest music created on all levels, on mythological levels, you know, how he was able to create these atmospheres. And to be honest, you know, I think my favorite thing of him playing ever is this video of them in Italy. And they just re-released it in color. And just being able to see him play at that level, he's already probably in his mid-30s at that point, but seeing him play and this sound, he's playing these gut strings and he's like, it's like 1965 or 64, and the way he plays on that Autumn Leaves,
that's some stuff.
Is unbelievable. And then of course, all his work with, you know, Joe Beam, Rosa Passos, you know, all these incredible Brazilian musicians where he actually low-key innovated Brazilian bass playing because he's on all of those records.
You know, there's one that's jumping out of my mind that I geeked out on because it has my favourite pianist, which is, or one of my favourite pianists, which is Kenny Barron. And it's the album Art of Three, and it has Kenny Barron, Ron Carter, and gosh, who's on drums? It's somebody incredible. Yeah, that recording there, he's playing Autumn Leaves and they play Stella and he's doing all of these kind of pedals and things and it's just amazing.
Oh, yeah,
So when you're playing with Emmet and the guy, you know, which is one of the gigs that people know you for, what's the instrument that you're using? Tell me about the bass and the strings and, you know, kind of like, have you found that it's not this bass, is it? Because
Well, yeah, this bass is very different from Bessie. You know, Bessie is...
Can we hear a bit of this?
Oh,
you were
sure.
playing a little bit of Hendrix earlier, which was pretty cool. I didn't think we'd be hearing Jimi Hendrix today, but I'm pretty, you know, I'm happy about that situation.
Oh man, I can't take credit for that because the first person I heard do that was the incredible Bob Hurst.
Bob Hurst is one of my favorite bass players. I
love
the
Bob
way
Hurst.
Have you ever
man.
studied with Bob Hurst?
I never studied with him, but I've been around him enough to like, you know, because the first band that really got me into jazz was Branford Marsalis' quartet. And I mean, between Eric Revis and Bob Hurst, I've watched every video.
Two heavy hitters.
Oh man, there's Bob Hurst, man. Because
so bringing it back to your bass, so your bass is Bessie, I believe.
So Bessie it's kind of weird. It's like some weird kind of Lester Young thing of like how he took the name Prez, and he's also Prez, but everybody else is Prez. Yeah. So Bessie is what I started calling my bass because I would be schlepping all around New York, and then my friend Michael Moenzo, he started calling me Bessie because I would always be like, all right, come on, Bessie. We got to go down to Smalls, or, we got to go to Smoke, or, come on, Bessie, we got to go. Most of the time, we got to go to the shop, you know, we got to go to Gage. So, you know, I started calling my bass Bessie, and eventually all these people started calling me Bessie, and it's the only nickname in my whole life that's ever stuck. And it's kind of beautiful because it's kind of like me and my bass have become one. And I was very, very fortunate to have that bass because Carlos Henriquez, Wynton Marsalis' bassist, is the one that sold me that bass.
If you're gonna buy a bass from someone, you might as well.
Oh
buy it
yeah,
from
well
Carlos
he's
Enriquez.
like the
Incredible guy.
He's like the Al Pacino.
He has some serious basses go through his hands.
yeah,
Every now and again, I see that he's selling one, and it's like an Italian.
He's
or,
always selling
Yeah.
basses. I mean, he got it down to a science.
It's a German bass, is that right? I'm
No,
guessing?
it's actually
Czech.
it's a Master of Art Juilliard, but it's Czech.
Oh, I love the Juilliard
From
basses.
1933, and she's very. I think Bessie is probably the most magical instrument I've ever played because once you know it's kind of difficult to see it on the live stream or wherever I'm playing, but she has a lot of work that needs to get done because the entire face of the bass is completely warped over years and years and years. And it has this hairline crack right up the F hole. And the only way I'm gonna get it fixed is if they take the top off. But because that is my sound and that's my bass, like I don't want to play any other instrument. I'm afraid to take off the top and stuff. So, but they've fixed it over years, and I probably will have to take off the top soon. But this instrument that I play is, it's like.
Doesn't Mr. Carter play a Jusek as well? Hasn't he?
Yeah, he has a Jusek too. Yeah.
So you're in good company. And then tell us about the strings that you've got, because this is one of these things that bass players love talking about basses and all that talk about strings. What are you playing in most of the videos? Is it the same set, or have you changed a lot?
So I could go through every era of strings that I've used on the live stream. So the first I'd say, give or take, 9 months of recording the show, I was using these strings by Parastro. All the strings I've used on the bass throughout the show have been Parastro strings. But I was using the pizzicatos, which are the black labels. And I love them because they're the closest in feeling to the golden spirals. They're gut strings, but they're really, they're wrapped with that like nylon wrap, and then the E and A are kind of more similar to the quarter, but they have a different formula. And they were still to this day my favorite string that I've ever played because they're just, you didn't have to worry about the fraying of the gut strings like I've dealt with quarters, and you get like that fray on the A string and like one little notch and be like, no, so they were my favorite. But then sadly I played a gig at the ice rink 2 days before Christmas, and that G string just unraveled entirely. So then I switched to the Ava Parazzis for a little bit, used the Avas, but really old Avas.
Was that the Vike or the light gauge one?
Yeah, the light gauge ones.
Yeah, they're my
the
favorite
Vikes.
ones of those. And then?
And I use those. I love the Ava Parazzis, but they didn't really quite feel like they were my string, I love Ava Parazzis, like Carlos uses them, John Clayton uses them, so many people use them, and they sound beautiful, especially with the bow. But for me, for what I do, I don't really play like I'm a wild card. I'm a wild child. I like to do extended techniques kind of the bass. So I need something that can help me to get to my more primal instincts. And Avas didn't allow me to do that as easily. I could still do it, and it sounded beautiful with the bow, but like...
You couldn't go primal.
Yeah, I couldn't go full primal. I couldn't skin out, as I say all the time. But like...
So what did you end on, Russell?
So now, so then I switched to the jazzers. I got a set of jazzers, which are totally different.
Steel, kind of.
Yeah, steel, but even thinner than the spiral cores.
Okay.
And I was experimenting with them because I was getting into that CTI, Buster Williams, Ron Carter sound. And they also spoke really well. They spoke really fast, and it was easy to play fast. It was kind of similar to this sound. Like all that growl and all that, like that sustain. I loved it, but then I was playing a gig on the street and the E string broke, and I was like, well, I guess I'm switching strings now. So then I put back on the Ava Parazzis again. Mind you, the same Ava Parazzis I got on the bass 7 years ago. I still have them. They have not broken.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that's like always my fail-safe. maybe I should play the Ava Parazzis. But then I checked out the Ava Parazzi slaps, and they gave me the best of both worlds, because not only could I, quote unquote, go primal and be able to because I love the gut string. To me, that's what my sound is, I love this sound. Like, I can always, like, get down with this. I could always get down with that. And maybe I should play steel strings again, because that's fun.
Amazing.
I like playing steel strings, but it's for what I do and for the people that I play with, that warm Paul Chambers tone, that warm gut strings tone that's like slightly muffled. It's to me, that's what the music sounds like and what the music needs sometimes.
So you've got, is it the synthetic?
Yeah. So they're synthetic guts. And it actually helped out too, because I'm a really big animal rights guy. I've been a vegetarian for about almost 5 years now. Wow. Almost 5 years. Being vegetarian saved my life. I love animals. I'm a proud bird father. I am very much very, very, very heavy on animal rights. So having that option of that sound, that gut string sound, without the sacrifice of this animal, for some bass strings, was like a plus for me, and it helped me to get to the same sound I wanted to get to.
So we've got this beautiful bass by Randy Hunt, who's kindly let us use this to present your course with, the lessons you've been filming for Discover Double Bass. These are Piastro Perpetuals.
Yeah.
So you've been digging the Perpetuals this week. I know how much you've been enjoying them, because you said they sounded, what was it, like a melon or something? I was hearing, like really rich and juicy. And
it was just like, so, like that. It's just like,
or mango. I think you said mango.
Yeah, it was like a mango, man. It's just like that. I love that,
When you get back to Bessie, what are you going to do? You're going to stick with the synthetic?
I think I might, because to be honest, what has happened now is I play every kind of gig from, I just did a klezmer wedding, to playing with Emmet, to then I was playing at this bar called Mona's, which is a very popular early jazz bar where we play Louis Armstrong and Jelly Roll Morton music. And I was playing and I was slapping really hard, because, when the Ava Parazzi slaps do exactly what they're supposed to do, is slap, and then the G string frayed, right? I think there was a bass player in the audience that threw some bad juju on me or something, but it frayed, and I was like, oh man. So then the great bass player, Murray Wall, who's like the most staple New York bass player, he was like, Russell, man, I'll come back, I'll get you a string. And then he came and he gave me like some old gut strings to put on the top. So I have, right now, currently, I have Ava Parazzi slaps, but the formula that's like half synthetic, half raw gut. So I'm like, okay, I don't really want to be playing gut strings, but this sounds so good. And this is like really what this is what I love. But to be honest, man, the Perpetuals,
They sound amazing.
Yeah, they sound, and on this bass, this is like the Rolls Royce of basses right here.
It is beautiful, isn't it?
It's gorgeous, man.
Sounds as good as it looks, because I love that varnish. And we're going to hang with Randy for a bit tomorrow. He's going to join us for lunch.
Oh, man.
So you'll get to meet him in person and thank him for his beautiful work.
Yeah, well, Bessie needs a big brother, so...
Yeah, let's see what happens, eh?
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Don't you go sneaking out with this bass before lunch. Listen, we're going to have to wrap up the conversation, but before you go, I'd be remiss not to ask you about your experience of when you were joined at Emmett's place by the great Christian McBride.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
I mean, maybe you could just talk a little bit about Christian and what
I could talk a lot of bit
Yeah.
about Christian. I'll talk the
why
whole
not?
day about
Why
him,
not?
man.
We've got time. But what was it like to play the duet with him? Because you were, I mean, that must have been a really special moment.
It was one of the greatest days of my life, man. Are you kidding me? That was Christian McBride. So here's my whole bass lineage, my bass timeline. There was a period of time where I was just trying to figure out how to play the bass. And then I saw this video, the first video I ever saw of Christian McBride. They were playing an Ornette Coleman song called The Turnaround. He says, yeah, I was wearing a fake Versace shirt. You know, it ain't nothing nice. But he's wearing this really loud silk shirt. And I never forget, I was just like, okay, this is the greatest bass player who has ever lived. Like, this is what I need to do. Like, when the first moment I heard Christian McBride, I was like, this is what I'm doing with my life. I don't care if I lose a leg. I don't care if I lose my sight. But whoever this is, I'm going to do that. Like, so then I became obsessed with Christian McBride. Obsessed. Bought the same strings, Helicore hybrids. Bought the same strings, put them on my bass, listened to every single record, everything from Pat Metheny's Let's Move, Tokyo Day Trip, to all the stuff with Inside Straight, all of his 90s stuff with his own bands, to science fiction and Live Atonic,
Out Here? Is that
Out Here? Well, that was kind of after
later.
I moved to New York.
That trio record. Oh,
yeah, incredible. I mean, Christian Sands,
so
Ulysses
you're
Owens.
taking all this on, and what were you getting from it?
Oh, yeah. But then the one that really got me was kind of Brown, because when I first heard that, I don't remember, but that's the bass line. When I heard that, man, I was like, Mom, I don't know what we're doing in October, but Christian McBride is playing at the Village Vanguard in October. And if you want your only son to be happy, you're going to take me to the Village Vanguard in October. I'd never forget the day. Like it was yesterday. I remember what I was wearing. I was wearing a blue flannel shirt. My hair I just got my ear pierced, and I saw Christian. And I was like 5 feet away from him on the stage, and I was in tears, man. The greatest bass player I've ever seen, and then I got to meet him. I actually ended up meeting the great drummer Brian Carter there. He had just started his freshman year at Juilliard. I was maybe a sophomore in high school or something. It was back in 2010, and then flash forward to 2011. We interacted briefly at the Stanford Jazz workshops. He came to do a concert. I was there playing with some of my friends in a masterclass as a demonstration for him. And then we really connected there. And then I moved to New York. And then we still always kind of stayed connected. I would go to his house in Jersey. He would be like doing business meetings on his computer. I'd be sitting there on my phone on his couch, and his dog is running around, and then we'd like play some duets, and then he'd be like, oh, okay, young gun, and then he'd like leave me alone for a little bit, and I'd be like, oh, this is amazing, and then flash forward to, being out of college, and then doing that video with him at Emmet's, and just being able to see, how you fit into a lineage with someone is a really special thing, because you never think that you're gonna ever, when you fall in love with the music, you never think that, okay, I'm gonna be in close proximity to Ron Carter, John Clayton, Christian McBride, Reginald Veal, all these people that I've loved their playing for many, many years. Ben Wolfe, Rodney, all these different people. Larry Grenadier even, I studied with him in high school, and I learned so much about bass playing from Larry Grenadier, and he's not, if not one of the greatest bass players that's ever lived, the most like beautiful human beings I've ever met. Like, oh my God, how could you be so kind and so sweet? You know, everybody from him to Ruben Rogers, we connected on the, you know, I never forget Ruben Rogers, you know, shouting at me in the class of playing too hard, you know, because we're both from the Caribbean, you know, we connected on that level, down to people that are maybe closer in age to me, like Joe Sanders, to me, Joe Sanders is probably the greatest bass player of his generation, you know, which is like a generation above mine. And, you know, Harish Raghavan and...
Oh, wonderful player.
Oh, yeah. Well, Harish, it's funny because Harish and we share a birthday almost. So, like, we'd always kind of connect whenever I'd be in Stanford. And he kind of is the one that showed me my... you know, two-finger right hand
let's
technique.
have a look at this.
Yeah, so this is like an exercise from the Petrarchy simplified higher method.
Yeah.
You know, so he kind of treated his first and second finger almost like they were drumsticks, like you're doing Wilcoxon or paradiddles or something. So like 1, 2, 2, or 1, 2, 1, 1. You know, like so. He would break this thing down. Really complex stuff because all the permutations are, you know,
so
exponential.
You're working on all of the permutations. You're not just...
Yeah, you're doing like 1, 2, 2.
Sure.
You know, 1, 1, 2, 1.
And all the raking, not raking.
Yeah, and then it's like, okay, this is mentally taxing. Yeah. But, you know, he showed me so much on the bass. Ben Williams, I had my first lesson in New York ever when I was like about 16 or 17 with Ben Williams, and he was just like, yeah, man, you know, you just gotta be cool, man. You know, I was just like, okay, well, you're definitely the coolest and best smelling person I've ever met in my life, you know. And he would just be like, yeah, man, you know, I just be, you know. You know, he has that technique that he just like barely touches his string and you know, all of that kind of stuff, and where he's like playing he's like the coolest bass player you ever seen. So
yeah, Ben Williams is a real special guy.
Special, such a sweetheart, man. Like I love Ben Williams.
Did you see the video I did with is it David Sanborn?
Yeah.
This is the thing that you see, the pandemic, it's been so difficult for so many people that, you know, it's this huge thing in all of our lives. But there has been this bit of joy that's come out. And I just want to say thank you, because the amount of people that message me and say, I'm always saying, who shall I speak to next? Who can I work with at Discover Double Bass? And one of the names that keeps coming up is Russell Hall.
Oh, man, I'm so gracious. You know,
everybody just gets so excited and they'll share with me these videos and, you know, because I think Emmett's Place is this kind of, it's such a platform for so many different artists, and it just seems like there's this energy happening in the minute that's emanating from there.
Oh,
that I just love, and it's so great that you're part of it, and you've come to share you know, your joy of the double bass with us, with a series of lessons you've been producing.
Oh, well, you know, it's an honor, man, because, you know, you never think, you always hope that you will get recognized for doing something in this life, and especially if it's art, because everyone creates art for the world and for other people. And, you know, when Emmet, Kyle, and I started doing it, we were just, you know, just doing something during the pandemic, and people were generous and helping us out, helping us pay our rents, and helping us to bring music to thousands of people every night. And then to see how it's evolved is really humbling, you know. And Emmet and I, you know, we've been to every continent. We've played with so many masters. We've kept each other in balance, you know, over the years. The three of us, we always, you know, I always say a trio is all about who can help, how you can keep balance with each other, you know. And it's been a blessing to be able to watch that grow, even to the point where, you know, maybe there will come a time where I'm not even there as much and someone else is doing it, and And just to know that we've created that platform for so many artists who have been struggling to have that visibility.
Yeah, I could talk to, I was just thinking of something. I'm actually, we need to wrap up, but I could talk to you about it all day because there's so much joy in there. There's so much incredible music. And Russell, I just really want to say thank you from everyone at the Discover Double Bass community. Thanks for joining us to present your lessons, your vision. Listen, I think a great way to finish this conversation would be, why don't you just play us out? Why don't you give us something just to listen to, just to round this off? And before you do, maybe let people know where they can find out more about you. What's your website?
My website is really easy, russellhallbass.com.
Oh, yeah.
And I would be remiss if I didn't say I do have a second album. I have a first album out, but I do have a second album coming out very soon. We just recorded it. It features the amazing Stacey Dillard, Gifton Jellin, Mark Whitfield, Max Milner, who's a great friend of mine from the UK, incredible singer, Matisse Picard, Kyle Poole, and my partner in crime forever, Michaela Marino Lerman, who's tapping on there, and also probably some other artists as well when I get to it. But yeah, find me at russellhallbass.com and Instagram at russellhall_. I'm all over Facebook. I'm all over Twitter. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
And TikTok. So.
And we'll be providing links for everything below. So yeah, just go learn more about Russell. And yeah, maybe let's hear a little something just to finish off the conversation.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I gotta think of something
maybe
to play.
Maybe a nice blues or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I might need to get in perpetuals, man.
Thanks, Russell.
Thank you, man.
That was the coolest. I just couldn't believe how beautifully you play.